Welcome to the Scoundrel's Vault. The vault here contains all the knowledge the Scoundrel has borrowed from other TTRPGs across the realm, waiting to be integrated into your own games at your table. I'm the chief curator here at the vault, and today we are looking at a system the Scoundrel reeled in pertaining to fishing. Let's dive in. Fishing seems to be a staple in most RPGs. It allows the player to relax while still accomplishing something exciting and engaging. Let's look at what the base rules and the DMG have to say about this tradition in RPGs, shall we? It seems all we have are some rules pertaining to wilderness survival and foraging, topics we will touch on in later videos, don't you worry. There is, however, a mention of fishing in the PHP. Fishing tackle, adventuring gear, 1 gold piece, 4 pounds. This kit includes a wooden rod, silken line, corkwood bobbers, steel hooks, lead sinkers, velvet lures, and narrow netting. Everything an adventurer needs to secure themselves a fishy dinner, no doubt, all except rules on how to use the kit. This is where the Scoundrel has come to our aid. The TTRPG Rod, Reel, and Fist by Richard Kelly and team allows us to gain an insight into what a fishing system could really look like if implemented well. Rod, Reel, and Fist is a 280-plus page text detailing the processes, equipment, and techniques required to make a fishing champion out of the average village fishmonger. With its approachable and familiar mechanics, like difficulty challenge numbers and dice pools, it is a simple matter to become embroiled in its heroic take on fishing without getting lost in the rules. The simple but robust system Rod, Reel, and Fist creates is suitable for all ages, leaning into the easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master motif, so even the youngest would-be adventurers can dip their feet into this refreshing TTRPG. Additionally, it has sections detailing world building, a fishing class system, a list of special fishing equipment, a fish compendium, and it details combat against animals. You know, just in case you need to fight a bear to keep that salmon you just caught. This text is absolutely ripe with ideas and mechanics to catalog and store. I am confident this will not be the only time I take a dive into this world of fishing. But for now, what can we take to shore up the weaknesses we found in the PHP? First, let's break down the basics of fishing. You must have a body of water, or liquid. Second, you need a fish in the water, or a creature. Third, you have to have tools to retrieve said fish. And lastly, there must be an exciting contest between adventurer and fish to determine who ultimately succeeds in this battle of life and death. For the fish, at least, hopefully. So how does Rod, Reel, and Fist accomplish this? Let's take a look at a simplified version of the rules. Rod, Reel, and Fist begins with the intention to fish, casting a line into a body of water. The GM then selects an appropriate fish based on location and size of that body of water. Both parties, the fish and the angler, have a pool of D6 dice. The size of the pool is determined by its physical attributes and equipment used by the angler. As for the fish, the dice pool is determined by its size and strength alone. On the first round of fish combat, the fish determines what is called a TN, or target number, between 1 and 6. This will be the number both members of the combat will have to meet or surpass by rolling the dice in their pool. This is just like a DC in Dungeons & Dragons. If the target number is 5, then both the fish and the angler must roll a 5 or higher on one of the dice in their pool, and can't use the sum. Once the TN is set, both fish and angler roll the dice in their pools to meet or exceed the TN. Any combatant that loses the roll suffers from a stress point, which lowers the dice pool of that character by 1. Additionally, they must succeed on a TN3 roll from their remaining dice to hang on. A loss on a hang on roll means that fish combat ends, with the line breaking for a failure from the angler and being reeled in with a failure from the fish. If both combatants lose the hang on roll, the fish is still caught, but assuming that combat continues, that process would be repeated again on the next round with the angler choosing the next TN. This goes on with the angler and the fish switching off choosing TNs for the round until one of them finally loses a hang-on test. Eventually, this ends with your players victoriously cheering the catch or reeling in exhaustion after losing the battle with the escaped creature. This is just the beginning though. There are a myriad of other techniques and pieces of equipment that add intricacy and depth to the system. I have put a link in the description for the web page for this TTRPG if you are interested in any more information. However, as my previous experiences experimenting with this system have shown, sometimes that can really take a long time. And in a game like Dungeons & Dragons, we tend to want to keep things moving. Unless it's a dedicated fishing campaign, and that's different. But let's see how we can simplify the system to fit our needs. First off, let's keep the dice pool, and make sure there's no such thing as a stalemate as rounds pass, as in both fish and anglers succeeding on the TN, for example. I'm going to accomplish this by removing TNs entirely, and switching to comparing and eliminating dice in their respective pools. Here are my new simplified rules adapted for D&D. Once the intention to fish is given by the angler, the DM would determine a fish or creature appropriate for the body of liquid the angler is fishing. Once this is chosen, the DM informs the player of the size of the dice pool of the creature they have hooked. Just like before, the dice pools are determined by size and strength of the fish, but for the angler, dice pools are determined by equipment alone. This is to be more inclusive on the stat spread that D&D gives its classes. Any character should be able to fish expertly. Next, instead of determining TNs and rolling against that, we're going to roll the dice in the pool and start comparing dice in descending order. Dice with lower values than their counterparts are eliminated from the pool of their owners. Ties in this circumstance go to the angler, since they already hooked the dang thing and this game is supposed to be about having fun. This pattern continues until one of the combatants runs out of dice and fish combat ends. An example of these rules would play out similar to this. A player casts a line into a clear pond and gets a bite on their lure. The DM determines they have hooked a pike, but keeps this information secret from the player. The pike is a small fish and has a dice pool of 2d6. The DM then informs the player they have hooked a fish with a pool of 2d6, and combat begins. A pool of dice is assigned to the player based on their equipment. A basic set allows for 2 dice. Magical or expert sets can allow for a larger pool. Anyone who has played Risk will understand what happens next. Both pools of dice are rolled, dice are compared, ties go into the player. The DM narrates what is happening while the dice pools slowly wither and run out, and either the fish escapes or the player reels in their catch and much rejoicing is had. Keep in mind, just because a player has landed a catch does not mean that the encounter is over. Some larger fish may have some opinions to give the player about their angling experience. An even simpler version would be to assign a strength score to the fish and have the player roll to hook the fish with a dexterity check, but only make strength checks to reel in the fish afterwards, with their gear and equipment providing bonuses to their rolls accordingly. Playing with a 3 strikes and you're out type of game would keep the pace quick and won't bog down your game with any additional mechanics. Though this does have a drawback with keeping some of the more intellectually inclined characters from participating as effectively. This can be reduced even simpler to a best of 3d20 die roll. Narrations would go a long way in this situation. This system has a lot of space for additions, perhaps using larger dice for the dice pools like d8s or d10s, or even allowing for special moves from the fish or the angler. The fish could attempt to wrench the angler or their equipment into the water, or the angler could force the fish to the surface with a wrench of their own, allowing party members to cast spells or shoot projectiles. I would also encourage you DMs out there to incorporate myths and legends about one-of-a-kind fish for your resident angler to seek out and do battle with. So, have you ever had a player interested in fishing? What kind of rules did you implement? What do you think of our rules? If you would change anything, what would you do? If you do end up trying this new system, tell us how it goes. We would love to hear and learn from your experiences. And thank you to The Scoundrel for reeling that in for us, and thanks to Rod, Reel, and Fist for making a TTRPG system that really hooked us. The full written rules for this addendum to the DMG can be found in the description below. Again, I am the Chief Curator, and I will see you next time in The Scoundrel's Vault.